we go back to sort of a fundamental principle of the human journey, which is the hero's journey. And this is a concept, this is an archetypal journey. We've all read about it. And so this is a process where people take their deepest challenges and they turn them into their greatest strengths. So in other words, I turn my wounds into wisdom. And that's the only way we can really break free of them.
You are listening to Catalyst Talks, conversations with change agents, outliers, superheroes, and truly conscious leaders modeling what it is to be an unstoppable force for good in this world. What lit these catalysts on fire to do their work, and what nuggets of wisdom can they share with a world literally on fire? The whole idea of Catalyst Talks and these conversations is to understand how these leaders have approached being on the leading edge of their truth. How did they uncover their purpose? And what does it really take to catalyze change and at scale? I'm your host, Stephanie Trager. I'm a consciousness catalyst and soul coach to superstar change agents in business, leadership, and life. On this podcast, I wear an eclectic mix of hats, including Earthkeeper, healer, coach, lawyer, business, and higher purpose strategist. My intention is holding space for higher purpose, peak wellness, and soul mastery so we can live in harmony with ourselves, each other, and nature. I'm here to awaken consciousness on this planet, unlock higher purpose, and learn what it really takes to catalyze change and at scale. Welcome back to Catalyst Talks podcast. Dean Taraborelli, founder of the Sanctuary in Sedona, a holistic addiction recovery center, and my dear soul friend, it is an honor to be here with you. Your contribution to the world and to people who are suffering is so huge. Your contribution to me has always been in my heart, and it's so huge. You're a leading expert on addiction recovery with a unique holistic model that goes against the grain of many mainstream models. So what I really see you as an expert at is the underlying issues, the root causes. And this is a phrase, obviously, that encompasses so much and relates to how we see the world, how we connect the dots. So I'm going to ask you in a minute to share an overview of how you came to what you know and how you started what you started. But first, I'm really curious, Dean, what is on your plate today? Is it a typical day of the life of Dean at the Sanctuary? What does your day look like today? Welcome, Dean.
Well, hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me. And no, this is not a typical day because the first thing I'm doing, well, not the first thing, but one of the first things I'm doing is talking to you and trying to, do what we can to make the world a little bit better of a place. So to that end, it's a whole new experience for me. And so I'm completely in the unknown right now. So therefore, it's the most unique day of my life yet. So here we go.
Okay, so now we know how Dean thinks and how he perceives every moment. What's happening for you after this, right after this call?
Well, actually today, I am going out and having some fun today. I actually live and work at the Sanctuary, and I've been doing that for the last 17 years. And so it's, we spend our time trying to help people get back into balance, right? And so I realized that, not going off campus for weeks on end, here it is, I'm telling people to be in balance and I'm not going out. So my coworkers have decided that I'm leaving campus periodically. So I'm not even sure what I'm doing, but it's not here. So I'm going to have a little balance today.
That's awesome. So yeah, for our listeners who don't know what the Sanctuary is and what campus is, would love to hear just your share on it and also how you came to find and create this place.
Yeah, well, Stephanie, I've been trying to figure out how to describe the Sanctuary for the last 17 years. In some capacity, it's a place where people come and work out kind of mental, emotional things. So our primary sort of diagnosis that people would come in is post-traumatic stress disorder, which encompasses many things, anxiety, depression, and addiction of every single kind. And there's lots of places that do that. But the way that we go about doing it is we ask the question, why are people doing these things? Because there's a definition of addiction that says, hey, it's just a brain reward mechanism, like your brain and not getting enough dopamine, so you're going to like do everything in your power to get some. And it's a physiological thing, and you just have it and you have to live with it the rest of your life. And that is one way of looking at things. And there's a whole body of evidence and science that says, wait a second, we can overcome these various things. So we look at all of those things as symptoms. So while anxiety, which happens to be now the #1 diagnosed mental affliction in the US, rightly so, you know what's going on out there. It's a symptom. Why are people anxious? Why is that? And since 95% of our brain is unconscious, most people don't really know why. So that's where we have to get into, you mentioned earlier, root cause, like the root. So getting people down into their root of what makes them do what they do. And once people start to connect to that, it becomes very interesting. This is not about stopping a behavior. It's about figuring out what makes us tick, and that we can actually find the keys and kind of hack into the unconscious mind and do things to support our body and our energy field and our soul while we're going through that process, and actually break free of these things. So that's what, in one capacity, we help people with these debilitating emotional things. In another way, we help people to kind of wake up to their full capacity. And, all the reasons why, Stephanie, if you think about in the basic rule of life, what is the primary motivators for humans or all animals actually is I seek pleasure and I avoid pain. So that's why food really is pleasurable. So we eat and stay alive, and sex is pleasurable. So we'll procreate the species and so forth. So most people don't go to their addictions or dysfunctional behaviors because they perceive they're in pain. Most people go there because it's pleasurable. So at the end of the day, oh my God, I relax with a martini, or, when I have a couple of drinks, I can dance better. And that begs the question, Stephanie, what is it about my belief system, about how I feel about myself, that I can't dance freely unless I'm intoxicated? Like, oh, I got 2 left feet, everybody's going to laugh, I don't fit in, I don't blend, I don't this, I don't that. That's where we have to start looking. And every human has this narrative in their minds in one way or another. It really depends on, how prominent that narrative is that prevents us from pursuing the life that's in alignment with our core values. So that's really what we do is, unfortunately, the people that come here are in crisis because, it takes a while to get to that work. So it's a month-long process, and it's not inexpensive because, we're going all day and into the night every single day for 30 days because it's elusive. If this thing were right there, people would have figured it out. And so, most people that have issues that are troubling them spend time figuring it out. Most people are intelligent, right? So I just make the connection. An intelligent person, given enough time to try to figure something out, tells me if they could have, they would have, Stephanie, but it's not here. It's not in the conscious mind. It's back here in the unconscious mind and all in their nervous system and energy field. So that's where we come in, and that's where we do our work.
So like
I think I just went off on some.
No, you didn't. But you're a non-12 step it's a non-12 step program, right? It's different than the traditional way. And you're talking about, okay, so it's beyond the cognitive, it's beyond the mental. What are some of the practices at this, at the sanctuary that are different? And what does a day look like for someone in crisis when they arrive?
Well, Stephanie, I think that it's really, in order to answer your question, I think we have to understand a little bit about the human being. And, you know, most people are, first of all, unconscious and going on throughout the day on autopilot. So think about it this way. I have a set of routines that I do. I get up, I have my coffee, I go to work, and so on. Much of the time we're thinking about other things or on our cell phone. Think about all the times you've driven to work and you're on your cell phone and you have zero recollection of the drive. So that's you're unconscious driving the car. And many of us go through the day that way. So in terms of, you know, helping people to be conscious of what's going on and to realize that in a complex self-organizing system like the body, it's self-regulating. It's taking care of itself, meaning it's making little adjustments along the way, as does nature. So it's the mirror. The mirror is the natural world. We are part of the natural world. So when someone has a shock trauma or a developmental trauma or an affliction, some kind of a situation that interrupts this thing, well, the body will reorganize around it. You know, that we will heal it. But a lot of times we'll put an intervention in, some medicine or something. And I want to just be clear, like, we're not anti-medication. We're pro anything that's going to help. But medication, like an intervention, hey, we add some medication so the system can calm down and begin to repair itself. Then you can take the medication away so the system can repair itself. So helping the body to do what it naturally knows how to do is all we're doing. And the psyche is the same thing. So when we look at, you know, a lot of programs out there, Stephanie, when I began my work here at the Sanctuary, we were the only holistic addiction and mental health center there was. There weren't any. And non-12 step was a concept. We made that term up because there was nothing else. So like, there's 12 step and everybody knows what the 12 steps are. And there are many, many, many kinds of 12-step programs, and they're good. You know, it's no criticism of the 12 steps, but this is not one-stop shopping. People are not all the same. So we're like, gee whiz, you can go to the 12 steps for $1, you know, every day. Doesn't cost you anything. And you can even go for free if you don't have $1. So, but people are still, there's many people that aren't able to get well going through that process. So, hey, let's step out of that for a minute, get to the root cause. And then if they're an AA person, well, go back, or a 12-step person, you know, or maybe they're not, and help them to find the path that will be helpful. So we have, you know, it's not what we do, because these things are out there and they're no big secret. Yoga and meditation and energy work and energy psychology and EMDR and eating the right food and put people on nutritional supplements. And we have a ketamine program and an IV nutrition program and all that stuff. It's the way that you put it all together, because holistic means synergistic also, just like my body. These things are working they're not just all separate independent systems. They're all communicating with each other. You have a vagus nerve that connects all your organs in your body that's telling your brain what everything is doing. So it's regulating everything, and everything kind of fits together. So it's you know, like an orchestra playing, you know, and a little more of this, a little less of that, and it's always compensating. And so you have to have a program that honors that. And many programs out there, and blessings, because when I first got here, you know, we were the laughing stock of treatment. And now, you know, we're like the flagship, people looking to us for our model. And, but I think the problem that we're seeing is that people are taking an antiquated system and adding some yoga and things, kind of like bolt-ons, you know, they're not integrated. And we need to be integrated, because many of us are disintegrated, Stephanie.
So Dean, you created this, and the community that you created, co-created, and it continues to co-create what you're putting into the world and your journey. Let me back up. So you and I met almost 10 years ago, and you were one of my teachers in energy medicine training, and really helped me with some deep shamanic healing. And I mean, you really facilitated massive transformation in my world. And I actually remember visiting you at the sanctuary years ago as well. And so what I've always really honored about you is your how you came to the work and the story you tell about how you came to the work, the energy medicine work, and also how you came to create the sanctuary. To me, there's a few pieces here. It's the why, your passion for what you've created, and your experience, that which I want to ask you to share your story about, because your story really puts it all together, explains everything you're saying, right? How and why you came to it, but also what did it take? Like, what did it take for you? Everyone has an idea. Not everyone creates the thing. So how do you think that the sanctuary will manifest it? Obviously hard work and passion and, purpose, but not everyone is able to create what you've created just because they have passion, purpose, and an idea.
Well, I think, Stephanie, in order to, I think, answer that question, we go back to sort of a fundamental principle of the human journey, which is the hero's journey. And this is a concept, this is an archetypal journey. We've all read about it. And so this is a process where people take their deepest challenges and they turn them into their greatest strengths. So in other words, I turn my wounds into wisdom. And that's the only way we can really break free of them. Because if I don't turn my wounds into wisdom, if I don't learn the lesson, the teacher keeps coming, right? And we all know that. We've seen our friends, of course we don't do it, but we've seen our friends in these toxic relationships, one after another. And then, they call us up and say, wait, you meet my new partner. And we say, hey, didn't you tell me to kill you if you got in another relationship? Yeah, but this one is so different. And meanwhile, they're the same. Until this person has the lightning bolt, and then they don't do that anymore. So that's what I mean by until we get the lesson, that same teacher will keep coming. So helping people to get the lesson, that's one of the things because there are great strengths in our challenges. And so this occurred to me, Stephanie. I had a journey, I started getting high when I'm 12 years old. And I have zero memory in my life before then. So just figured out why, actually not too long ago. And so I get some marijuana at age 12, and it regulates my nervous system because of a little trauma I had in first grade at a Catholic school. But the next thing I know, that leads to this horrendous alcohol problem. And what do you do when that gets out of hand? You go to treatment. And so, my family they call around to some specialists, and I go to treatment. And I do exactly what I'm told for 5 years, and I follow instructions to the T right up to the time that I got high again. And this then progresses until I get some opiates, and I'm like, wow, those are pretty good. My breath doesn't smell. And so that then leads me down this opiate path. And at the kind of the worst time in my life, my habit was about $200,000 a year. And that's for about 5 or 6 years. That's not 1 year. And I'm not proud to say that. I could certainly use that to build a building or something at the sanctuary, but that was all part. So anyway, I'm in this thing. And when you have a habit like that, life is not easy. This is a phenomenon to deal with this. And meanwhile, I'm working 16 hours a day. I bought this company trying to get this thing going. I got employees that are depending on me, and a family that's trying to not look too bad, and then I got this other horrible thing going. And so I'm going in and out of rehab all the time, and I'm getting worse and worse, and my habits getting worse, and I'm going to the best treatment that money can buy. I mean, I'm into this thing for hundreds of thousands, easy. And when that's not working, Stephanie, I start going around the world. I start looking at like, hey, maybe if I go down, I started looking up things like ayahuasca and shamanism and other things. And so then I started going to see these people. And if I heard about some shaman or some doctor or some mystic, I heard if you sit on X mountaintop at sunrise on the solstice, your addiction will go away. I went and did it. So I'm going around. I got like 50, 60 countries I've been to trying to get well. So now I fast forward to my last treatment experience. And it's the worst place I've ever been. It's right here in Prescott, Arizona, like this horrendous place. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And I'm sitting across from my counselor, and it lands for me, Stephanie. I have a flashback of every single counselor I've ever sat across from, because I paid strict attention. You know, I wanted to get well. I had people that cared about me. I had a good life. It didn't make any sense what I was doing. And so because I paid such attention, I remembered them all. So I had an easy 50, and I was watching them like Charles Dickens, you know, Ghost of Christmas Past, all coming and visiting me. And I had a conversation with this guy, and all of a sudden I'm like, holy smokes. Just because people are counselors, you know, these are well-meaning people that go into this line of work. Nobody goes into it to like for fame and fortune. But well-meaning and well are two different things. Just because somebody has stopped a bad behavior doesn't mean they're well and how I want to be. And the second thing that occurred to me, Stephanie, and this was, I think, the key one, was holy schmoly. I know more about this subject than any of these people that I have sat across from. And my 20 years of treatment and 30 years of addiction was my training. And I'm like, holy smokes. Then all of a sudden I didn't feel lower than low. I was like, you know, you really busted your ass in school. Let's get out now and get your degree and do something with this. So it's like, you know how to create a program. And that's what my whole life has been about. And all of a sudden purpose landed in that moment. And that's where a lot of this work that we do here, it's like helping people, wait a second, many people don't know their purpose. Like, what am I here for? You know, am I here to just get my visa bill paid on time and get the kids to school on time? Like, is that really why we're here? Probably not. But a lot of people don't know, because we have to get the kids to school on time and get our visa bill paid. Right? So we have that. And sometimes we get so caught in that, you know, we lose track of really our destiny. And helping people connect to their destiny is when we can look at, say, hey, what is your purpose? Well, all the struggles that we've been through and all the things that we learned in our struggles are probably going to be what's going to help you personally, you achieve your destiny, because that's your unique learning path this lifetime. So it's really through our challenges that we get these skills, and those skills are great keys to our purpose, if that makes any sense. So people are looking at their purpose. It's like, look at the stuff that you've overcome, because you've learned a great skill there, and there's somebody else trying to overcome that right now, you know? And your wisdom of how you did that is a potential key. And it may not be, your path may not be a helping path, but ultimately every path is a helping path. You know, everything is of service to something. If we look at nature, Stephanie, it's a closed system. And this is why humans are so messed up right now. You know, everything in nature has a purpose. There is no waste in nature. There's nothing that is not recycled. So we need to have a purpose. You know, we need to contribute to nature. That's why there's service as part of every single spiritual tradition in the history of Earth, because service, we are of service to the entirety, just like all of nature. You know, I live in the desert, so this bug eats that plant. This plant gives off some fragrance that does this to that. This plant does that and that, get the next to that. And this eats that and drops the seed over there and some tree grows. And so it's all connected, you know, and we are part of that connection. So that's how I got to this, was in one single conversation of like, holy smokes, this is going somewhere. I can take all this and turn it into something good. And once I had that, there was no looking back.
So was it like a spontaneous recovery in that moment, or whether that's the right word, recovery, but was it spontaneous for you? Or was this like, as you created the sanctuary, or, you know, had the mission that it
good
fell
question.
away?
I'm sitting there, and then after that, the vision of the sanctuary starts coming. So it comes as a vision. It was installed. It was given to me. It was not, I didn't create this, you know, I'm just a servant. So at the end of the day, I wait because I didn't want to leave treatment early, and I'd been there for 20 years. And so I decided I was going to wait till my parents came to visit me, right, to leave rehab. And so the rest of the time I'm there for another month, and I'm just waiting, and this vision is coming in. And so I decided I'm going to leave treatment. And that was the last time I walked out of the door of a treatment center, except for here. And then I decided I was going to focus on my healing. And that's when I really pursued shamanism, because there was something about it. I had signed up for the Four Winds, and I was at a conference, you know, some years ago at that time. And, you know, Alberto Villoldo, that's the founder of the Four Winds, was giving this talk, and I'm like, wow, this guy's talking to you. And my life wasn't going particularly well. So I signed up to go to the Four Winds, and I'm all set to go. And meanwhile, I have this company back east, and I don't know I don't even know why I signed up, but I knew it was important. And the next thing I know, I didn't make it to class because I overdosed instead. And so I'm like tied to some hospital bed with all kinds of tubes. And so anyway, don't you know it, when I moved to Sedona, Alberto was giving a talk like the next day. And he introduced me to one of his assistants, who became one of my mentors, who really helped me. Her name was Heather Cluett. And she was, and that's how I got well. And during that time, then I was learning about all the other components of how to get well and how these things kind of fit together. So I was on an experimental path of my own healing to try to figure out what fit together with what. And because I had a lot of experience in a holistic approach from just being all over the place. You know, I had been in many sort of exotic healing environments trying to get well over the years, you know, so what fit together. So that was kind of the beginnings of all this.
Thank you for sharing your story, Dean. There's something you said when you first started sharing about your what brought you to this purpose, you know, to the awakening of your purpose. And it just stood out to me where you said, you just figured it out just a little while ago, right? This big piece about your memory from your childhood. And you don't have to go there, but I'm just bringing this up because it's so interesting how you've been on this path for 30 years, right? Diving in the deepest anyone can go, and still there's more work, right? So I just thought that was really fascinating.
You know, I think, Stephanie, and this is where it becomes if we look at the platform of the medicine wheel, which it's very easy for Western mind to dismiss the medicine wheel. Oh yeah, you know, this is some little stone circle on the ground. You know, people don't realize the complexity of this thing, you know, like how many layers that this is, like a very complex healing tool. And it's so interesting because, you know, one of our guides, Joe Dispenza, is a guy who's on the cutting edge of science, right? He has these week-long things every month, and he's got people there with, brain mapping and heart monitors and genetic testing pre and post, and they're doing all this stuff, right? So he's on the latest cutting edge of technology. And then we have the shamanic people that, they've been talking about the same thing for the last 20, 30,000 years. And they're talking about the same thing, and just the language is different. So somehow we, with all our tools and monitors, just because we can now see it on a computer screen, we think we made it up. So, but we didn't. So the medicine wheel is a very complex tool. And the beginning part of the medicine wheel, I think the best way I can describe it is it's about like an intense healing process. And then the second part of the medicine wheel is more of about an evolutionary process, so growth, because that's our natural way. So if we think, Stephanie, something transpires in people's life that arrests their growth, that arrests their destiny, their dreams, that somehow railroads them from their path of ultimate expression, whatever that might be. So we got to heal that. And then oftentimes in healing that, we realize that our expression can even be greater than what we thought that it was, right? So this whole process is about, how do I sing the song, the symphony of life, and participate in that? Because that's why we're here. And, I don't know anybody that, doesn't want to be free and doesn't want to be curious and doesn't want to have new experience. And even though we're terrified to do those things, I think people want to. So that's what I mean by full expression. Like, hey, you have an opportunity to do some crazy thing. Part of you wants to do it, but this other part says, oh no, you can't. What if somebody sees you, or your neighbors find out, or you'll be late for work, or everybody's, it's so interesting. Everybody's praying for this like miraculous thing to happen, but then something starts to happen. They say, no, it doesn't fit in my convenient schedule right now. Like it has to be on Tuesday because I have from, 9 to noon at free time. Miracles happen when they do. And so this is the part of the medicine wheel of being available for these things, right? And like, okay, so where am I today? Well, hey, I still have some addictions cooking. I gave up heroin, and now it's bulletproof coffee, and I get some sugar going every now and again, and I believe that's a drug, man. And so these are ongoing things. Hey, constant curiosity of not more in some achievement way, but more in an expansive way. That's, again, human nature is to expand. The universe is expanding. Our brain capacity is expanding. So our job is to expand with it.
I love that. I love, yes. And the medicine wheel, the simplicity of the medicine wheel, and what you just shared is around, okay, you could always come back to the medicine wheel and can start over, right? I think that's what you were saying. And, something that came up to me was, I spent time with the Kogi people in Colombia, an indigenous community tribe in Colombia. They're so still connected to the cosmos on such a level I had never seen before, experienced. And they were like, when you talked about Joe Dispenza and all of the technologies, right? And we talk about pedigree, and we talk about licenses, and we need credentials. And then we talk about the medicine wheel, and we talk about our stones and our shiny, pretty amethyst, sparkly stones. And, oh, look at these beautiful stones. Oh, you must be a really good shaman. You have such beautiful stones in your mesa. And the Kogi had just these simple rocks, and they were like, stay away from those shiny stones. That's like harming, that's mutilating nature. And it basically saying that it was just a really interesting perspective. It's like the simplicity of just consciousness versus all of our need for evidence and measurement. And I'm not knocking it. It's all good because it all serves a purpose, and we all need to meet ourselves where we're at. I do see this a lot, though, for people seeking help and support, and they're looking for those credentials. They're looking for those letters after someone's names. But, how do people find the help that they need that actually is going to match the consciousness that they need? Like, somebody might have amazing credentials and just might not even have that consciousness. Yeah. What do you say about that?
Well, that is the key. And I think that this is where intuition really comes in. And, the problem in mental health, so I can speak to that because that's my area of expertise, and blessings to all the people. There's many credentialed people out there. No credential requires people to actually go through any kind of internal healing process of their own. So it requires me to learn how to hold space in groups, and you do case studies and all the things that you learn about, and that's valuable. However, probably the most valuable thing is actually going through a healing process, an evolutionary process yourself. So I always look for, when I'm looking for a teacher or a mentor, I look for people that I want to be like, right? I mean, are they having fun? Do they look like they're having fun? Is this a person that laughs? Do they know what they're talking about? And what does their life look like? And so, look, we go to a cardiologist, right? And the guy weighs, he's overweight. And is that, there's an incongruence there. I'm not saying he can't do a great bypass, but I think that there's again, if you're just looking for the bypass and not getting to the root, right? So I think that there are many great healers out there, whatever that even means. I think it's just really people that are undergoing a process of their own. So that's the most important part for me. And again, I'm just giving you an opinion. For us at the sanctuary, one of the things, we have the most impeccable staff that's available on the earth. These guys are credentialed, and Sedona attracts that, right? The one unifying thing that they all have is that every single person here on our staff is involved in their own healing process. They're getting healing work themselves. They're going to retreats. They're going to the jungle. They're going to Vipassana. They're going to classes. They're going to, oh my God, I've got this thing that's coming up. Let me dig into it. And so they're very much engaged in this same thing that we're helping the clients to do. And I think that's really necessary right now, because particularly how fast things are moving in the planet right now, Stephanie, everything is so unstable because of the speed at which things are changing. And also the mixed messages which we are being sent by the media, and the censorship that is happening. And I really don't care to comment about, vaccines and viruses and this and that. There's all kinds of data all over the place about that. But I can tell you, when data is being censored from us and people tell you it's for your own good, that's gaslighting, and people know that it's not right, and they know it's not right, even though they tell themselves and justify it, because that's just how people stay safe, by rationalizing things. And so with all of that happening, even more important that the people that you're getting help from continue to get their own help, because, hey, somebody was healthy last year, they may not be healthy this year, right? Because there's a little extra stress going around. And also there's great opportunities now. In great times of stress like this, there are these amazing opportunities. And so when we can look at it in that way, look, it's a very exciting time on the planet. It's not for the faint of heart, don't get me wrong. But as you know, this time has been predicted, and it's the end of an era and the beginning of a new era. Many cultures talk about it, and I pay close attention to that, whether it has to do with the precession of the equinox or going through the photon belt. The energetics of the planet is changing, and does not support the current structures that the human beings have created on this planet. We must change with the planet or we are not going to be here. So that's just life. And, so we can stop beating each other up about all the different things. We're in an extinction event right now. And David Attenborough, I was watching the show about his life, and he mentioned, he was born, I think, in the 40s, and he said, there's half as many mammals on the planet right now than there was when I was born. And he's right. And that's because of human activity. So this is a fact. And so we can talk about sickness and viruses and all that. And really the thing that we're talking about is this bigger thing, or what we should be talking about. And what does that mean as humans? And how do I want to show up in the world right now? I think this is the biggest question. Okay, virus, no virus, this, that, whatever your perspective is, how are you showing up? And how do you want to show up? I know people that have not left their house in a year, and I respect all decisions. Like, this is not about, oh, you're right, good, bad, right, wrong, indifferent. I couldn't do that. I'd rather just get sick and die, live until you die. It reminds me of all the times back in the day of being all cloistered and sequestered and afraid. And that's not good for the human spirit. So I think this is a time for, I'm so interested in coming on your podcast for this very reason. How can we help people to be like more courageous? All the things that they've been reading about and talking about and wanting to be. Well, now's your chance to be it. When it's all easy and you're sitting there, under a palm tree with a waiter serving you food, looking at the ocean, it's easy to sit there and be all philosophical and, but when the things are coming down like they are right now, where are you? This is, I think, the call for us. What's going on? How do you want to show up? And if you're not showing up the way you want to show up, then what are you going to do about it?
Thank you. I am taking that in. I needed to hear that today. Yeah, there's, everything you're talking about is root cause, right? It's the underlying issues. And I think that, there's so many people who don't know, they're like on the cusp of a breakthrough. I mean, from simple, like you talked about, there's the big addictions that are, stigma addictions, there's smoking addictions, there's people who really know that they need to make changes in their life and they're not used to the healing path, right? Like, so you went on this journey and now like you've shrunk it all into this opportunity for people to come here and go through it all. And there's just so much opportunity for coaching and healing and transformation right now everywhere. But I think there's a lot of people that are within that wall of pedigree or that are within that wall of still just kind of matrix thinking. And their soul knows they need something else. So what I'm trying to say is I feel like there's this line that people have this invitation to cross. Look, it doesn't have to be all literal and linear, and it's so much bigger a step out of this matrix thinking, yet they really don't know where to start. And then they're like, oh, this sounds really cool. It sounds, but then this cognitive part checks in and it's like, yeah, but it's like so different than what I'm used to. What do you say to that?
Well, that's the phenomenon, Stephanie. It's sort of like we're in these patterns. We're trying all these different things, and somebody comes along and says, "Oh my God, have you tried this?" And everybody's like, "No, I can't try that." Meanwhile, what they're doing is not working. So this is just kind of the human thing. And until suffering, until our commitment to suffering or until our commitment to change overpowers our commitment to suffering, we're not going to try new things. It's usually what happens. The path for people to wind up at the sanctuary typically is they'll try a bunch of different things and then they'll wind up here. Hey, what do you do, man? If you look at the medical world and in the mental health world, there are some big players out there that own a lot of different centers, and there's a lot of shenanigans that go on around marketing and all that. So some of these guys have budgets, $100,000, $200,000 per pay-per-click. we can't compete with that. So what do? You Google, you see a big center, you call them up and they tell you they can help you. And so you send your loved one there. And because at the end of the day, all you want to do is help your loved one. And that's kind of the model. So people will start there because, hey, I've heard this big center, it's kind of known as a flagship, and then they won't get what they need there. So then, well, let me look at the next, let me broaden, let me take a little bit more risk, and then it's sort of like people that get cancer. What do? You go to the big cancer center in town. Maybe you don't get what you're looking for there. So by the time, a few more stops, now you're getting some acupuncture, and maybe we should have started at the acupuncture and wound up at the big cancer center or whatever. So people, I think, Stephanie, I think what's going to transpire right now is the systems that we have in medicine are not working. And so this is not a testament about any of the efforts that people make, and doctors are working, and nurses and healthcare people and mental health practitioners. These are tireless workers. It's the system itself is dysfunctional. It's the system. It's not about the individual effort. The system has become top heavy, and insurance companies and all these different things that are going on. And as evidenced by the fact that we spend twice as much as the next 10 countries combined on healthcare, and we're ranked in the 35 in health. And okay, so there's a correlation. I didn't just make that up. It's like, hey, wait a second. If I was an investor and I'm investing twice as much as the next 10 guys all combined, and my product is number 35, I'd be talking to my board of directors wondering what they're doing. So I think that's kind of the meeting that we're in right now. And it's going to be the consumer. It's a bizarre medical paradigm that we're in, but it's coming to an end because people they're not healthy. We have great trauma medicine in the United States, but not such great if you're, if you have an accident, this is the best country to be in, man. You can get sewn up and repaired. But if you're not feeling well or you're depressed, boy, it's not such a great place to be.
Yeah, I remember it was about 11 or 12 years ago when I stepped into my medicine wheel with you. And I remember I was going through a whole life reorg. And one of the things I will never forget is how you held space for me as my life was changing so rapidly. And part of what we stepped into the South, and that once you make that commitment to step in and say yes, that things will start to change, whether you like it or not. It's all being organized in your highest and best good. And so, but it might be really, really hard and ugly in the moment. And so, I got ejected out of my apartment in the city, and all kinds of crazy things were going on. I know you remember that. And this is kind of on the collective scale what's going on right now. And this, to your point, a great opportunity we're having right now. We're just ejecting the uglies are rising to the tippy top, and we could see it. And you either choose cognitive dissonance and don't want to see it, or you accept that everything is happening right now. So people going on this individual journey, and one last point I want to take with you here is if people going on an individual journey and their life is a mess, everything's falling apart. And it's just so easy to fall into depression, victimhood, why me, ouch. I mean, that's just why we do that. And you've talked about, we're addicted to our belief. What kind of beliefs feed that lower vibration? I don't say that in a judgmental way, but to feed that lower perception versus the, oh my God, this is hard. Hold on for your life. We're going through the tunnel. What kind of addiction to what kind of beliefs are we addicted to that keep us there? And how do we get out of that?
Well, I think in order to really respond to that, I think it's important to really tap in on what beliefs are, because we talk about them a lot here, because I can tell you, people sometimes we'll confuse a belief with a choice. Or, I choose, hey, I'm Christian and he's Muslim and she's Jewish and he's vegan and she's vegetarian and he eats grass-fed only. These are choices that people make. They are, of course, tied to beliefs. But beliefs are actually very much associated with our safety. They are how we perceive every single thing in the world and how we correlate them to make sense of them so we can predict the future and respond to my environment. So it's the assigned meaning that I put on every single thing in my environment, and therefore I can respond to it. So beliefs become valuable for my survival, imperative, because, hey, here's a dog coming at me. I go to my library, and even though I haven't seen this dog, I say, wow, I've had dogs in the past. This dog's wagging his tail. I know how to respond to the dog. Another person in their library, they had some bad experiences with the dog. Now they know how to respond to this dog, but in a different way. They're going to get out of this dog's way. So that's what beliefs allow us to do. So most beliefs that people have aren't even theirs. We get them in two ways. Number one, we get them in the first 8 years of our lives. So we're getting them from our parents, our teachers, our institutions. So if our parents happen to have a bad day and they say children should be seen and not heard, if that happens to land that particular time, so it's children are like tape recorders, man. We hit record and they record everything. So if they get some messages in there that are disempowering, that becomes the way they look at the world. The second way that people get their beliefs are through life experience. And if I happen to be in fight or flight more than I'm designed to, which is what's going on planet Earth right now, I will develop beliefs from a place of survival, not a place of higher creative thought. And that's going to be a much more limited belief. So it's our beliefs that are created in duress. Those are the beliefs that are limiting for us right now. And what I mean by that is, beliefs, I'm not good enough. It's never going to happen for me. I shouldn't do that. Don't take a risk. So all of these things are, of course, based on survival. So survival-based beliefs are going to be much more limited than beliefs that are created during a time of more expansive thought. Just the menu's bigger, so you have more choices to select from. So I couldn't say specifically what each belief is, but I can tell you what the juicy ones are if you want to know. Here's kind of the core wounds of people. I'm separate from God, separate from Creator, separate. The rules of everything don't seem to apply to me. That would probably land on people like I don't fit in, so I'm separate from something. Abandonment, abuse, betrayal, and being defective. There's something wrong with me. So those, when you slice and dice them, those are sort of where it all, there's zillions of permutations of those things. But those are kind of the big wounds, Somebody hurt me. I can't trust this. I'm not okay. I'm not going to be safe. And unfortunately, what's going on in the world right now, all of the news and everything, everybody knows that stress inhibits the immune system. So, it's interesting, we're talking about a virus right now, and all this horrible, tragic, terrible news is actually worse for people's immune system and therefore more likely to cause them to get sick. So that's a paradox, isn't it, Stephanie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the addiction to all, you gave a really good overview of beliefs, where they come from, and what is the addiction part? How does the addiction part play into beliefs?
Well, since I'm dependent so much on my beliefs, two things happen. Number one, I'm going to protect them. And number two, I'm expecting them to come true. And that's why people beliefs are a self-fulfilling prophecy. They tend to come true one way or another. So that's why we have to go to the belief level. What's interesting is because of an addiction, what is an addiction? An addiction is just where I will do something and it feels good and I'll keep doing it even when the consequences start to outweigh the benefit that I'm getting. And if we look at, like, lots of stuff fits in that category, Stephanie, it's not just drugs. Many prescription drugs are addictive. That's why your doctor will tell you not to abruptly stop taking this drug because you're addicted to it. Coffee is addictive. Food, look at all the people. If we look at obesity and diabetes, these things are lifestyle oriented. It's because people don't feel good and those things give them a temporary hiatus. That's what an addiction is. And people that, so we look at watching the news can be an addiction. Anything that's an out of balance thing. Right now there's people that live in fear that have to know what's going on in the news, right? I have to know, that's a form of addiction. And it's just because people are uncomfortable. So they're just trying to get comfortable. So until we get comfortable, focusing on the addiction itself, it's because it's not the addiction. Addiction is just a way of being comfortable. That's why people that stop this thing will often pick up this other thing if they remain until they get to the root of why they're uncomfortable. That's the root cause. So this is what an addiction is. And a lot of people right now are uncomfortable. That's why the numbers are skyrocketing. I think alcohol sales last year were 50% more than they were historically, and I think most of it was getting delivered because of this whole bizarre pandemic thing going on.
Yeah, those were the stores that were allowed to remain open. But I want you to go play because you have to get off campus today. So I won't keep you here forever.
Stephanie, thank you so much for spending time with me. And I hope you got what was helpful for your people that will listen. And anyway, just appreciate you and your work so much.
Yeah, I just want to ask you one last thing. If you could just share one last nugget around this comfortable piece about comfortable. If you could just, if anyone listening right now needs to hear, well, how do I become more comfortable? It's crazy. Like how? What would you say?
Well, I actually don't. I think that let's talk about comfortable for a second, because maybe that's not what we're looking for per se, because you're never going to be comfortable. It's very uncomfortable right now with change happening so quickly. However, let's look at it this way. If we look at the phenomenon of DNA and epigenetics. So what does DNA do? DNA instructs your body how to make proteins in a certain way. So now epigenetics means that my environment is signaling that DNA to instruct the proteins so that the instruction can be different. So the protein that the DNA makes can change depending on the stimulation from the environment. That's what epigenetics means. So our DNA is in a constant ebb and flow and flux state. It's changing all the time. So when I do the same thing, when I follow my comfortable routine day after day after day after day, I'm sending the same signals to my DNA. Therefore, it's making the same proteins and growing the same body. Nothing is changing. When I'm doing something different, which is often uncomfortable, now I'm sending different signals to my DNA because I'm doing a different activity. I'm having a different emotional experience around it. My DNA is now sending different signals down. I'm growing different proteins. I'm growing a new body. So I'm going to change. So therefore, being a little uncomfortable is okay. It's like, I think if people weren't uncomfortable right now, there'd be something bizarrely wrong with them. It's like there's some people that think, hey man, the virus is going to come and kill me any second. That'll make you uncomfortable, right? There are people that are freaked out about this thing. There are other people that are saying, hey, wait a second. However I feel about the virus feels the government, what's going on with the government and censorship and my freedoms and these things, this feels important to me. That's very uncomfortable. So I don't know that there's such a thing like the 80s are over, Stephanie. Like there's no going back there. This is a new way and we have to create a new world. And something that helps me a lot though, is when I think about all that stuff and I think right now I'm talking to you and you know what? I'm okay today. Like I'm all right. This is okay. And I think if we all like really just check in right now, most of us are probably okay. And if I just keep doing that, hey, here it is a few seconds later and I'm still okay. And probably by lunchtime, I'll probably still be okay. So if I can check in like that, then like, what is it that I'm so worried about? And have I not gotten out of every other conundrum, every other tight spot I've ever been in my whole life? Asking you guys out there that question. Well, if you're listening to this, apparently you have, right? You're alive and somehow okay. So you figured it out then. What makes you think you're not going to figure it out this time? Like, it's the interesting thing, Stephanie. We go to the movies, right? And everybody wants to see these movies where the hero goes through these twists and turns and, like an epic journey. Nobody wants to go to a movie where like people, high school sweethearts get married, live in a picket fence and nothing happens. Like I wouldn't go to that movie, like, I mean, it happens in real life, whatever that, but most people want like more action and adventure. I go to the movies, I want to be like on my seat edge, But when it comes time for our own lives, we go, no, I can't have that. No, I don't want any adventure. So it's like, you're asking for adventure. Here it is. Now we just have to learn how to embrace it. And this is all easy to say and hard to do. And that's where you come in with your podcast and the ways that you're helping people and all of us in our own little ways.
In big ways. Thank you, Dean. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Catalyst Talks. Stay tuned for what's up next, and please subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. You'll find those links at catalysttalks.com. Join us. We continue this conversation on social media, and if you'd like to reach out to me privately, you can send me a message at stephanietrager.com. Your attention here means the world to me. Thank you.